So if you see their internet advertisement, the music that's behind that, I wrote it, played it, produced it, mixed it, engineered it, put a spit shine on it, did all that stuff. And I'm looking to do more stuff like that actually. I can handle a lot of different genres, but where I seem to do better is pop, rock, and R&B, and co-producing some hip-hop stuff in terms of arrangements and extra instrumentation and things like that for producers who already have got a track going. I'm doing a lot of that kind of work. I'm doing some sample replay work, doing interpolations of samples that are really tough or pretty expensive to clear. I'll recreate them, and that tends to be a lot less expensive for people to use that instead of trying to clear an expensive sample. So yeah, I've kind of got like 5-6 irons in the fire in terms of production, and I'm building that side of my career up. But I'm very busy right now with the mixing, so there isn't a lot of time for me to do as much as I'd like to do to turn my career more in that direction. But I'm really happy kind of doing lots of different things. I feel really comfortable wearing a lot of different hats, and I think it's working out for me.
Who are a few people that you have not worked with yet that you really enjoy working with? What producers?
I'd really like to get a chance to work with. Danger Mouse.
Which head of Danger Mouse? The Gnarls Barkley side, the Broken Bell side,
probably the Gnarls Barkley side. I'm kind of like I kind of like this in between thing. I love when stuff crosses genre. This is sort of like a a mesh of a lot of different things that I grew up liking a lot, and probably for the same reasons. I'd really like to work with Andre 3000. It would be a really great experience for me, just because I feel like he's experimental and he does a lot of things that aren't necessarily conventional, and I like that kind of thing. Because a lot of what we do in this side of the business is sort of like predictable in terms of the way that we do things. Not necessarily what our product is, but the way we do things is kind of predictable. But there's a lot of new artists that are out that I really think are doing some pretty cool stuff. Like Rat-a-Tat's doing some really cool stuff, and I'd like to get on that. I'm working with Kid Cudi right now, who's working with a slew of different producers who are really different as well. And that project's really fun, so that's the kind of thing I'm into. So yeah, I like to do things that toss it up a little bit, something that's a little bit different than what we pretty much regularly do, which is come to the studio, lay the beat down, track the vocals, mix, do additional production, master it, put it out. Some of these guys do some pretty different stuff, So yeah, those are some of the guys that I would be thinking about right now.
Let's take it back to the studio right now. A new producer walks in with a beat, you're ready to lay it down. What are some things that you're going to look for in that producer's rough mix?
Well, some things that are important about the rough mix is it kind of gives me an idea of how they're working. One of the major mistakes I see, especially with guys or producers who are younger, or they're just starting out, or they're just not quite as experienced, is they don't understand the whole gain staging thing. How loud to make, all the tracks pushing into the master fader in the mix, and not hearing the distortion when it's happening, and just generally not knowing how to build a production from the ground up. Having this solid foundation of having things recorded at a decent level without being too hot, recording things in a way that just sounds good. Let's face it, most of these guys are using, small systems, small footprint systems with lower quality interfaces on them, and it just doesn't sound as good as when you're using this kind of stuff, big studio. So to begin with, it doesn't sound optimal. That's probably the best word that I can come up with. They're not using great preamps to run their kicks and their snares through, so it kind of falls flat. And producers with either less skill or just less experience don't necessarily know when all that's going wrong. So what they end up with is something that sounds one-dimensional, and it kind of falls flat. It's not exciting, it doesn't have any life to it, although it may be loud and there may be enough bass in it and there might be enough highs in it and it hits in a good way. That's all good. And I've heard plenty of songs that survive even on the radio like that. But generally, the productions that I like to hear more often than not are the ones where time has been taken to be careful about the tracking process, so that you can get it right. And there's enough space in the mix. There's dimension, there's depth, and there's dynamics, and there's clarity and openness and width and definition. And those are the kinds of things that really can make or break a song in a mix. I think you could, like I said, I think you can do good with sort of this guerrilla-style rough mix, but it's definitely an advantage for a mix engineer like me to get stuff that's cleaner coming in and better recorded. So I think that's one of the major mistakes that they make. But from the rough mix itself, I can learn a lot. Because generally, if it's a new producer, or at least new to me, someone I haven't worked with before, I'm not really that familiar with their material or their past work, their rough mix can kind of tell me what direction they're going in terms of the emotional intensity, the movement of the track, how the arrangement's laid out, what the instrumentation is supposed to be like in relative volume to the one instrument to the next. How loud is the kick compared to the vocal? So I kind of better understand the influence on the producer and the artist when I can hear the rough mix, because this mix is the one that they've been listening to throughout their production process. So by the time it gets to me, they've already got a sense developed fairly maturely about how they want the thing to sound. But when they decide it's time to go to a professional mix engineer,
they may have demo-itis.
They may have demo-itis, but they've also made the decision that our demo isn't up to snuff, so we need to step it up another level. And so my next step after listening to that rough mix is to have a conversation with them and ask them, what is it that you're looking to be different from the rough mix to this finished project? And so having that dialogue and understanding the producer and the artist and everybody else who's involved with the project better gives me a better idea of how to meet their expectations. And frankly, part of this business is customer service. You got to meet the expectation of the client. I may have my own ideas about what I think it should sound like, and I'll certainly assert myself because I think I have the experience and the background to bring that to the table. But I bring it to the table as an offer of help to bring their creative vision to another level. So I try to use the rough mix as a guide, at least to tell me what they were envisioning, what they're used to hearing, and then I try to make the mix work in a similar way so that if they've got demo-itis, they're not completely blown out of the water by a mix that sounds absolutely nothing like their rough mix.
What advice can you give the new producers on iStandardProducers.com, just in terms of getting their music out there, perfecting their craft, and really making it in this volatile industry we know is music?
Well, I think if they're on iStandard, it's probably a good first step, because you got to get yourself inserted into a community of people that are doing this kind of stuff. I think that's the most important piece of information I can pass along to anybody, is that if you want to do it, you have to be where other people are doing it, because you're not going to get noticed sitting in the middle of Minnesota tapping away on your MPC 2000 and emailing your beats to random people. It just doesn't work that way. I think getting involved with communities who are supportive to new producers is really, really important. There's plenty of places online to do that. One of them is iStandard Producers, which I think is an invaluable resource. Not only do you get feedback on where you're at with your production level and how other people are doing things, but you're also, like I said, in a community amongst other people who are trying to do the same thing that you're doing, and you can share a lot of information. There's a lot of other networking opportunities too, like, man, there's beat battles, there are showcases for new producers. A great way to do it is to get to know the people who are working in the studios that are producing the kind of music that you want to be working on. If you know where your favorite artist or producer is working out of, meet some people from the studio and share your material. Make sure people know what you do. Have business cards that are professional, that showcase that, hey, I'm a professional person. I'm serious, and I'm in this to win, and I'm not just some other schmuck who's had a couple of dollars to buy Fruity Loops and make beats. You gotta differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd, because there's so many people who want to be in this business. Why should anyone choose you over the next guy? That's your job. Your job is to make sure that people know why they should choose you over the next person. You could have the hottest beats in the world, but if nobody hears them, nothing's gonna happen.
Mr. West, any final words for our viewers? Any shout-outs? Anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to let them know?
Well, I want to thank you for asking me to do this video for iStandard. I've known about you guys for a long time, and I've known you for a long time, and I think what you do is invaluable.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Producers that are trying to learn more about this business. Shout out to Just Blaze. Thanks for all the great projects you brought me in on over the last couple of years. Obviously, we've had a lot of success. Wow. Thanks to Stadium Right Studios, this beautiful facility here. They let us come in here on a last-minute notice to shoot this. Appreciate that. Shout out to all you producers on iStandard who need hot mixes. Holla.